Thousands of documents from 2 criminal investigations into the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been released in the US. Among the files are details of Epstein's contacts book, which offers a glimpse into the sheer number of his wealthy and powerful associates. Today is the legal deadline for the Justice Department to make the information public, although the Deputy Attorney General said earlier that not everything will be released in time to meet that deadline. Let's go straight to our correspondent, Tom Bateman, who is in Washington tonight. The scale of this release, Tom, is huge. What are we learning so far?
All right, everyone. Dr. John here. So what just happening? The DOJ just released buried FBI documents from 2011 containing sworn statements accusing Trump of sexually assaulting a minor in the 1980s with ties to Jeffrey Epstein's network.
Well, this is a case, Jane, remember, that has convulsed the political system here in Washington, and the release of these files had been demanded by Congress, who in the end forced the hand of President Trump to create this legal deadline today. Now, we were expecting the files to be released around 8 p.m. UK time. In the end, they were a little over an hour late. And this is a vast trove of information. They've been released on the Department of Justice's website, categorized into former investigative records, files themselves that the Department of Justice had been looking into, now made public, and many, many new photographs.
This is happening while Trump is actively sitting in the White House. The DOJ may call the claims unsubstantiated, but the damage is already done. Social media is exploding and the story is spreading faster than any spin machine can handle.
The files include pictures of Bill Clinton, here appearing to be in a hot tub and in a swimming pool. The images are undated and without a clear location, but they are in a batch that appear to show Epstein in a series of foreign locations. Another shows the former president alongside Epstein himself. Clinton was photographed with Epstein several times over the 1990s and early 2000s before the financier was first arrested. He's never been accused of wrongdoing by survivors of Epstein's abuse and has denied knowledge of his sex offending. This image shows Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell outside 10 Downing Street. Again, we don't know when or why. There are thousands of pages of documents and images in the Department of Justice release. Many details are blacked out.
The devastating irony, Trump himself promised to expose the Epstein network. Whether or not it leads to prosecution, the political fallout heading into the midterms could be catastrophic. This is not just another allegation anymore. This is now an official government document.
Donald Trump knew Epstein for years, but says he kicked him out of his club in the early 2000s for being a creep. The call to release the files has convulsed his party, but earlier this year, the president was resisting.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
Publicly released, officially recorded, formally documented. That changes everything. That shifts the conversation in ways that cannot be undone. Trump's legal team is going to go ballistic. They are going to deny everything. They are going to call it a witch hunt. But the narrative is already out there.
Standing with victims, lawmakers have long called for the files' release, Congress finally forcing the president's hand. But still, a top Republican on the committee that helped push it is warning of consequences if the administration doesn't release nearly everything.
This president, he's agreed to comply with this law if he signed this law. He had a part in making this the law, so his attorney general has to comply with it, and there are penalties if she does not.
Given the scope of the released files, it will take weeks, if not months, for everything they reveal to become clear. Officials say many more documents will also be released in the weeks to come.
It is spreading like wildfire, and you cannot control what people are talking about. You cannot force millions of Americans to ignore a story like this. That is not how information works anymore. Let me take you back to something that makes this even more painful for Trump. He promised to release the full Epstein files. He said it during his campaign. He posted it on social media. He said it in interviews. He stood in front of crowds and told them he would expose everything. And then what happened? He got pushback from Congress, bipartisan pushback. Democrats and Republicans disagreeing with him at the same time, which almost never happens. And suddenly, it was only a partial release. Suddenly, the files were missing. Suddenly, the timeline got fuzzy. fuzzy. And now these documents show up anyway. Either they were always going to come out and Trump knew it, or something else is going on behind the scenes. Either way, it makes him look bad. It makes him look like he has something to hide. It makes him look like he was trying to control the narrative and failed. This is the kind of broken promise that sticks in voters' minds. This is the kind of thing people remember when they are thinking about elections. And here is where this gets really dangerous for Trump politically. We are not talking about some obscure allegation that only political junkies know about. We are talking about something that is going to be on every major news outlet. We are talking about something that is going to be shared millions of times on social media. We are talking about something that could legitimately move the needle with swing voters. This is the kind of story people bring up at dinner. This is the kind of story people text each other about. This is the kind of story that stays in the back of people's minds when they are thinking about voting. This is the kind of thing that can change election outcomes because it becomes part of the broader narrative about who Trump is and what he is about. But that is not even the wildest part. This story does not exist in a vacuum. It is happening at the exact same time that Trump's administration is dealing with Iran tensions. It is happening at the exact same time that protests are happening across the country. It is happening at the exact same time that his legal problems are already piling up. The timing is almost unbelievable. MAGA supporters are going to dismiss this as fake news. They are going to say it is a witch hunt. They are going to say the Department of Justice is corrupted. We have heard it all before. That is the standard response. But suburban voters, moderate Republicans, women who are already worried about Trump, this could actually stick. This could actually matter. And that is what makes this moment so significant. Let me walk you through exactly what is in these files because the details matter. The FBI interviewed this woman 4 times in 2011, 4 separate interviews. That is not nothing. That means the Bureau took this seriously enough to sit down with her multiple times and go through her account in detail. According to the notes that are now public, she claims that Trump sexually assaulted her in the 1980s when she was a minor. She claims this was connected to Epstein's network. These are detailed FBI notes. These are formal government documents. This is not gossip. This is not hearsay. This is an official record. This is something that law enforcement took seriously enough to document formally and file away. When did all this happen? According to the files, we are talking about alleged incidents in the 1980s. That is decades ago. But here is what is really important. The interviews themselves are from 2011. That is 15 years ago. The FBI had this information. They documented it. They had notes, they had statements, they had details, they put it on file, and then nothing happened. Years went by, nobody heard about it, nobody knew about it, and then suddenly in 2026, it is public, it is everywhere. The jump from 2011 to 2026 is significant. That is a long time to sit on something like this. That is a long time to keep allegations under wraps. And it raises serious questions about why it took so long to come out. Why was it buried? Who knew about it? What decisions were made to keep this quiet for so many years? The woman's account, according to the FBI notes, allegedly places this incident at one of Epstein's properties or at a location connected to Epstein's network. That is important because it is not just an isolated claim. It is connected to the broader Epstein ecosystem. It is part of the pattern of predatory behavior that was happening around Epstein. That is what makes it significant. That is why people are losing their minds. It is not just some random allegation. It is allegedly connected to one of the biggest sex trafficking cases in American history. Now, here is what most people do not understand about this story. The Department of Justice's official position is that these claims are false and sensational. They say there is no credibility for prosecution. They have basically said, we looked into this and there is nothing there. That is the official government position. The Department of Justice is not saying they believe this happened. They are saying the opposite. They are saying the allegations do not hold up. They are saying there is no legal case to be made. But here is the thing that the mainstream media is not emphasizing enough. The fact that these files were previously withheld matters. It matters a lot. If the Department of Justice was so confident that these claims were baseless, why were they not just released years ago? Why did it take reporting on missing files to get them to show up? That is the question nobody is really asking. You can say it was bureaucratic slowness or whatever, but that is not a very satisfying answer when we are talking about allegations against the President of the United States. It raises questions. It raises all kinds of questions. Think about it this way. If someone came up to you and said, we found all these documents in a filing cabinet that we supposedly looked through years ago, you would be suspicious. You would wonder what happened. You would wonder if someone was hiding something. You would wonder if there was a cover-up. And that is is exactly what people are wondering about right now, because the narrative of, oh, we have had this the whole time, we just forgot to release it, does not really pass the smell test. It does not add up. It feels like something else is going on. It feels like there is a story behind the story. The timeline here is also pretty interesting. These interviews happened in 2011. That was when Obama was president. That was when nobody was particularly worried about Trump becoming president, because he was not even a serious political candidate at that point. Donald Trump was a reality TV guy. People did not think he was going to be president. So if the Department of Justice was going to bury this, they probably would have done it then. But instead, they just sat on it for years and years. And then when Trump becomes president, when he starts talking about releasing Epstein files, suddenly we are getting these documents released. That is suspicious. That looks bad. That is the kind of timing that makes you wonder what actually happened. It is almost like someone decided to release these files to cause maximum damage. The official explanation is that they were just missing and got found. But the optics are terrible. The optics are absolutely brutal. Let me break this down into what actually matters. The documents themselves are real. The Department of Justice released them. The FBI did interview this woman 4 times in 2011. That is not in dispute. That happened. That is documented. What is in dispute is whether the allegations are true and whether they matter legally. The Department of Justice says they do not have legal weight. The woman says they do, and now the public gets to decide what they think. They get to make up their own minds. That is how the court of public opinion works. That is how democracy works. The timing is politically explosive. Trump has been president for just over a month in this scenario. He is already dealing with Iran tensions. He is already dealing with protests. He is already dealing with legal problems piling up. And now you have this story that everybody is going to be talking about. You cannot control the news cycle. You cannot stop this from spreading. All you can do is try to manage the fallout. And that is really hard when you are already dealing with so many other problems. It is like everything is hitting you at once. When one scandal is happening, you can maybe manage it. But when 5 scandals are happening simultaneously, that is when things get really messy. This connects to everything else. The E. Jean Carroll civil verdict found that Trump engaged in sexual abuse and defamation. That is an actual court finding. That is not allegations. That is not accusations. That is a jury decision. That is a legal determination. You have got the Access Hollywood tape, which is actual recorded evidence of Trump making disturbing comments about women. You have got actual audio. You have got his voice. You have got specific words that he said on tape. You have got the hush money case in New York, where Trump was convicted on 34 felonies. 34 felonies. That is real. That happened. And on top of all that, you have got potential contempt charges for violating gag orders. Trump has been warned multiple times that if he violates the gag order, he could face jail time, actual jail time hanging over his head. So this is not just about one allegation or one case. This is about a series of legal problems, all of them relating to sexual behavior and harassment and potential crimes against women. They all connect. They all add up. They all paint the same picture. So when this Epstein file story drops, it is not dropping into a vacuum. It is dropping on top of an already massive pile of legal and political problems. It is piling on, and that is what makes this moment so dangerous for Trump. The media can connect all these dots. They can say, look, here is a pattern, here is a history, here are multiple allegations from multiple women spanning decades, here are court verdicts, here are recordings, here is documented evidence, here is a pattern of behavior. That is a powerful narrative. That is the kind of narrative that moves people. That is the kind of narrative that actually changes how people think about things. It is not just one thing, it is everything together. It is the cumulative weight of all of it bearing down on Trump's image and credibility. Here is what you need to understand about the Epstein network. Epstein did not act alone. He had a whole ecosystem of people around him. He had wealthy people protecting him. He had connections to powerful people in business, politics, law enforcement. He had an entire network of enablers and protectors. And the theory here is that Trump was somehow connected to that network, either directly or indirectly. That is what people are alleging. That is what this story is about. Trump has been to Epstein's properties. Trump has known Epstein. But so have a lot of other wealthy people. That is the thing people do not really talk about. A lot of wealthy guys in New York knew Epstein. A lot of them knew him socially. They went to parties. They did business. They existed in the same social circles. That is how New York society works. But here is what is different. When other wealthy guys knew Epstein, when other rich businessmen knew him, nobody is really investigating that stuff as intensely. But Trump is different because Trump is president. Trump is the most powerful person in the world. So every connection matters. Every photo matters. Every piece of evidence matters because he is the one making policy. He is the one with power. And if he is connected to this whole ecosystem, then that becomes relevant in a way that it would not be for some random billionaire. The presidency changes everything. It changes how we view his past. It changes how we interpret his connections. Nobody really knows where this goes from here. Could there be criminal charges? The Department of Justice says no. They have already made their position clear. But could something change? Could new evidence emerge? Could Trump's Department of Justice decide to handle this differently than the previous Department of Justice? That is an open question. Could there be more political fallout? Absolutely. That is almost guaranteed. Could this energize Democratic voters and cost Trump in the midterms? That is entirely possible. That is actually pretty likely. Could MAGA dismiss this entirely and it does not matter at all? That could happen too. We are in uncharted territory here. Nobody has ever had to navigate this exact situation before. This is new. This is unprecedented in American politics. Trump's legal team is obviously going to argue that these allegations are old, unproven, politically motivated, and should be ignored. And they have got some valid points. The allegations are old. They have not resulted in charges. But the court of public opinion is not the same as a real court. And in the court of public opinion, the narrative is already spreading. The story is already out there. You can try to manage it, but you cannot unring the bell. Once people know something, they know it. You cannot make them unknow it. That information is out there. It is in the world. It is in people's brains. It is going to be there during the midterms. It is going to be there when people are deciding who to vote for. That is just reality. The Democrats are going to use this. They are going to amplify it. They are going to talk about accountability. They are going to talk about fitness for office. They are going to say this is why the midterms matter. That is a powerful message that could actually move votes, that could actually change outcomes. That is real political power. That is the kind of thing that actually wins elections. Not just talking points, not just slogans, but a genuine, visceral sense that something is deeply wrong, that something needs to change, that the person in power is not fit to be there. Here is the thing about the midterms that people do not always understand. Midterm elections are about turnout. They are about who shows up. And when you have a story like this, a story about sexual misconduct and cover-ups and broken promises that energizes the Democratic base like nothing else, that gets people angry. That gets people motivated. That gets people to actually show up and vote. The question is not really whether this story is true or false at this point. The question is whether it matters politically. And politically, this matters a lot. But here's the thing that might matter most. The fact that Trump promised to release the full Epstein files and then did not. That makes him look like he has something to hide. That makes him look like he was protecting himself. That makes him look complicit in ways that are hard to articulate but easy to feel. Even if that is not true, the optics are absolutely brutal. They are killing his narrative. They are undermining his credibility because when you make a promise and you do not keep it, when you say you are going to do something and then you do not do it, people lose trust. People wonder what you are hiding. People assume the worst. That is just human nature. That is how trust works. Trust is fragile. It takes years to build and seconds to destroy. And when a president breaks a promise about something as serious as releasing files related to a major criminal case, that damages his credibility on everything else he says. So what comes next? We are probably going to see congressional pressure for more investigations. Democrats are going to want to investigate. They're going to want committees. They are going to want to drag this out and keep it in the news cycle for as long as possible. We are probably going to see the media obsess over this story for weeks. News outlets are going to cover this constantly. It is going to be on cable news for hours every day. It is going to be in newspapers. It is going to be on websites. This story has legs. This story is going to go for a while. scale. We are probably going to see more leaks and more documents coming out. When one document gets released, people start asking about other documents. You get FOIA requests, you get pressure, you get more stuff coming out. There are always more documents. And we are probably going to see Trump's legal team file motions to try to keep things quiet, try to control it, try to manage the narrative. All of that is going to be a distraction from whatever else Trump wants to be doing as president. He wanted to focus on his agenda. He wanted to talk about immigration or the economy or whatever. Instead, he is going to be dealing with this. This is the kind of story that defines an administration. This is the kind of thing that historians are going to be writing about. This is the kind of moment that people remember years from now. Whether it actually leads to criminal charges or whether it just damages Trump politically, it matters. Every bit of it matters. None of this happens in isolation. It all connects. It all builds. It creates a cumulative effect. It wears on people. It makes them tired. It makes them cynical. It makes them question whether institutions are actually working. It makes them wonder if the system is rigged. That has real consequences. That has real political power. That can actually change how people vote, that can actually affect election outcomes in real ways. So where does this go? Is Trump going to be prosecuted? Probably not, based on what the Department of Justice has said. Are his poll numbers going to take a hit? Almost certainly. Is this going to energize Democratic voters? Almost certainly. Is this going to be a massive distraction for his administration? Definitely. Is this going to be something that comes up over and over again for the next 2 years? Absolutely. We are going to be talking about this for a long time. It is not going to go away. It is going to linger. It is going to stay in the background. It is going to come up again and again. Every time there is a news cycle, every time there is a controversy, this is going to come up. That is where we are right now. The Epstein files are public, the allegations are out there, the documents are official, and the political fallout is just beginning. What happens next could change everything. What happens next could reshape Congress. What happens next could determine the course of American politics for the next decade. Keep your eyes on this, because this story is far from over. This is going to be one of those moments that people talk about for years. This is the moment when everything started to shift. This is the moment when things started to crack. Pay attention, because you are watching history happen in real time.